Welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results. Hey, and it might not just be your business voice. We're all about the bounce back here. We're all about helping you find your own arc to your best authentic voice. Easy for me to say, right? So in the meantime, keep liking, watching, sharing. And the reason why we get this to work is I get to bring people onto the show that have walked the walk and then are able to help others to do so. So we've got a mindfulness episode today that I'm really excited about. A mindfulness leader, Bob Martin, who has had the opportunity to be a university professor of mindful leadership. I love the fact that when it is said, Bob is the heart and soul behind a wise and happy life. Bob, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm honored, and I'm grateful for that. Listen, in any day and age, I'm a fervent believer in the power of mindset and how it has helped me personally, and the way that I convey it as a business coach. So I love bringing on experts in that regard. What got you interested in pursuing a career in mindful leadership?
I'll answer that in just a moment, but as you were giving the intro, you said something which brought something else to mind, if you don't mind. You talk about finding your authentic voice. And, I teach at the university, and because I was a lawyer for 40 years, I also teach a law course. And one of the movies that I have my students always watch is The Post with Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep. And in that, she plays the wife of the owner of the Washington Post, who just died back in the Nixon days.
Right.
And she is a woman in a man's world and has no voice. Mm-hmm. She goes in, she's now the owner, the boss. She goes into the board meeting and people just talk over her. She can't find her voice. But then there comes a point in the movie where she is put to the most important decision, and it's in her hands to make it. And she finds her voice. And when she does that, you just want to stand up and clap because she found her voice and she took a stand. And that's one of the things I think about, finding your voice, is that when you take a stand for something, something especially outside of yourself, when you take a stand for your business, when you take a stand for your product, when you take a stand for customer satisfaction, when you take a stand for something spiritual or something good, these are the times when, your voice is the most authentic, I think. But anyway.
More than anyway. That's exactly. So I haven't seen that movie, and every piece of what you said tells me I need to. So first, I love a good movie reference. The actors involved, the point. That's 100% the purpose of what we get to do. So I love the beautiful visual of all of that. So right off the bat, I want to follow up with that, not necessarily the movie, but what makes you just said something, and I want to get this right, where you talked about that point of using your voice. Tell me again, as it relates to the movie and also as it relates to you, that sense of what do you believe is the reason that people, and you just said it, that will make that stand?
Yeah, there's a certain quality to authenticity. Mm-hmm. And I think it goes hand in hand. And this may sound a little strange. It goes hand in hand with how full you are of yourself. The more full you are of yourself, the more arrogant, the more the ego is, the more the praise that you're looking for, the less authentic you are.
Yep.
The more you speak for some little story.
Yeah,
So I'm out to eat with my wife. Now I'm a lawyer, trial lawyer, so I mean, taking a stand, that's my business.
right.
But in my private life, it's like, I don't want any controversy. So we're out to eat, and my wife orders a fisherman's platter, which has scallops and shrimp and a lobster tail and a piece of fish. And it comes out and it has crab legs instead of the lobster tail. So she goes, "Oh, I really wanted the lobster. Tell the waiter, tell the waiter." And she's poking me, "Tell the waiter, tell the." And I go, "Don't worry about it. I mean, crab is good. You don't have to worry about it. Crab's just as good as lobster. I mean, dip it in butter. You won't notice the difference." No, I really wanted the lobster, she says. And she goes, go ahead. And I'm hesitant. I don't want to make a scene. But then she goes, "Put on your lawyer's hat."
Okay.
So all of a sudden I go, "Up, waiter," and now I'm representing her. So it's not about me anymore. It's not about me making a mess. Now I am representing her. I'm standing for her. And all of a sudden there was my voice. And that happens over and over and over. But, I was fortunate. I was blessed that I had a profession that called me always to stand for something. Now, as a defense attorney, you stand for some pretty miserable people.
Right.
Talk
to me about this, because I feel this dynamic of either like presenting, selling, so to speak, selling versus taking a stand. I really do. Talk to me a little bit about that sense of prior background.
Yeah. So, well, a lot of people, ask me how I can do that, how I can represent child molesters, rapists, murderers. Actually, murderers are probably the easiest to represent. They're usually the nicest folks.
Why do you think
Sounds
that is?
weird, but they are.
I know.
But anyway, and when you're a prosecutor in criminal law, you do it to enforce the law and for the safety of the community and, for justice and closure. And there's all kinds of, as a defense attorney, you wouldn't think you have that. But if you have the right attitude, then what you're doing it for is that, the police and the prosecutors enforce the law. Defense attorneys enforce the Constitution.
Okay.
We are the ones that stand as a barrier to state misconduct. We're the ones that say, if you're going to take my guy, you got to do it by the book. You can't cut corners.
Okay.
You can't violate their rights. So we see ourselves as the trustees of freedom. And if you're doing it because you're standing for a free and just society without police overreach, and you are the guardrail, then it's an entirely different feeling that you have than doing it for the dirtbag.
Gotcha. Because right, you're doing it for
so you have to find what it is. So if you're selling a car that you don't believe in, that's miserable.
Right.
That's miserable.
That sense of how are you finding, but you just described something that is miserable because the story is difficult to find. You can make one up. See, to me, this is what I find so fascinating and helpful. This reminder of what is the ultimate purpose that someone is serving. Talk to me about your background a little bit. And while I never wallow in this stuff, I just think it's kind of cool. The sense you had to make a call. People are labeling you as something called the Cocaine Cowboy in a big old city like Miami. Where were you and how did you make the choice to shift?
Well, I was a mediocre student. And the way that I got to law school, and I got to one law school took a chance on me. And I grew up in amusement parks and carnivals. And my biggest ambition in life was to sell enough hot dogs in the summer so I didn't have to work in the winter. But somehow I got pushed and I got shoved. And it was a good friend that inspired me to at least apply to a law school, and I did, and I got one that accepted me.
Mhm.
And we were standing around, not standing around, the freshmen were all sitting around, and
Right.
we were asking each other, like, what kind of lawyer do you want to be? And when they came to me, I said, I had no idea. Like I said, it wasn't my intention to go to law school. I'd never really thought about it too deeply. Then I found myself there. And I said, I want to be a judge. When it came out of my mouth, all of a sudden, I realized that this crazy hot dog, cotton candy, popcorn guy had an opportunity to make a difference in the world.
Okay.
And there was something about there that changed my attitude. So from that point on, it was, I'm in it 100%.
Mm-hmm.
So I came in, and I got a job with Janet Reno, who was the DA of Miami. And this was the day of the Mariel boat lift.
Of Janet Reno, and I'm sorry to talk over you. I was gonna say, yeah, I to me that's interesting. All right, please go ahead.
So it was the days of the Mariel boat lift, and it was the days of the Scarface movie, if you've ever seen that, or Miami Vice. That was the vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And I rose up in the office and became into the economic crimes division. So we took out a RICO case, racketeering case, against a conglomerate of mobsters,
Mm-hmm.
and hit them for a lot of money, 70 million or more.
Mm.
And shortly thereafter went out into private practice, hung up my shingle, and then they came to visit me, these guys. The top folks, between the Colombians and the Cubans and the Italians and the Haitians, they all came to visit me, and they said, hey, you're pretty good if you hit us for this much money and beat our lawyers. So we want to start sending you clients. So I, in effect, became a mob lawyer for several years.
Yeah.
The only problem was that I was making money hands over foot, but let's just say those were the Cocaine Cowboy days, and my behaviors got pretty excessive, if you understand what I'm saying. And as a result, I was running around feeling invulnerable, arrogant, like I was on the top of the heap. And my personal, private, and family life was falling apart into tatters. It was just going to the tubes. And I was spending money hand over foot, and so everything I made was going back out to some stupid investment or some scam. Anyway. So I was seeing a therapist. I'm hitting bottom. I'm seeing a therapist, and turns out that he is a number one student and devotee of a 72nd generation Daoist master from the Shaolin Temple named Watching Ni. And like I say, I was desperate for help. Master Ni came to Miami. I met him, and I said, I didn't grow up in a religious family in any way, so I had no particular North Star that was guiding my life. And all of a sudden, I met this guy. He wasn't spiritual. He was just down to earth, authentic, and he knew how to live life. Wow. He just knew. Okay. And I knew that he knew. Mm-hmm. And so I studied under Master Ni for 6 years, mm-hmm. and it changed my life. And the same time that all that was taking place, I moved to North Carolina. It was a place where I had a blank canvas to rewrite my life. And so I devoted myself, through Master Ni, there came a time when my heart just opened. It was a physical event. It literally opened.
Hey, do you mind if I ask you, you said of that time that your heart just opened. Could you walk us through a little bit of the how and why of that?
Well, in Eastern thinking,
right,
or Eastern psychology,
mm-hmm.
it's all about happiness.
Okay,
that's what the focus of Eastern psychology is, on being happy.
Mm-hmm.
And there are certain things that make you unhappy, and they were the things that I was living. They were things like greed and arrogance, and hate and aversion, and liking and not liking, and desires and ignorance. Mm-hmm. And what they found then, and what brain science confirmed now is that trying to reduce your sense of negativity or stress is nearly impossible. The only thing that you can do is balance it out with the other side. And the other side is what they teach in Eastern psychology is if you cultivate generosity, loving kindness, wisdom, and empathy, if you cultivate those attributes, they will balance out your unhappiness, and eventually you'll learn what happiness is.
Rather than try to eradicate.
Rather than trying to suppress it. Because when you try to suppress it, you just stick it into your gut and you wind up with ulcers or worse, or cancer.
Or feel like failure. Oh.
Yeah.
I understand what you mean. So
basically the lesson is curate your environment. Mm-hmm. The Buddha said, put guardians at the portals to your mind. Mm-hmm. Don't go watch hack and whack horror movies and then wonder why you have nightmares, right? You have to curate your environment and bring beauty into it. And brain science tells us this. It tells us that the right prefrontal cortex is where our fight-flight response is housed.
Right.
And when that's overly active, we tend to be negative, cynical, arrogant, all about ourselves, selfish, and all those things. When our left side is activated, we tend to be connected, more spiritual, generous, loving, kind, all those things. And so you want to balance the electrical activity on both sides of your brain. And so since you can't reduce the right side, you have to build up the left side. And that's what Eastern psychology focuses on. And that's what I studied for 6 years.
So you're living in Carolina. You have this, in essence, blank slate, right? If I heard you correctly, you got this blank slate that you don't have to be what you were or what your mind was, in essence, the picture that you're either creating or the reality that's taking place. Was it an aspect of like one logistics question, and then I do want to progress as to how it's helping others, but I was going to say the logistics question, blank slate, how difficult, because I would imagine the past is playing mental games with you, and whether it was a sense of, will they find me? Will they leave me alone? They, being the external world.
Not a problem. Wasn't a problem. Wasn't a problem because Johnny, we had an agreement that I wouldn't do anything unethical or illegal. But Giovanni, his son got arrested. And he came to me and he said, I know what our agreement is, Bob, but you got to win this. You got to do whatever you got to do to win this case. It's my son. You got to beat it. Whatever you have to do. If you need witnesses, I'll get you witnesses,
Right.
And I wasn't going to do that. And I happened to visit North Carolina. The azaleas and dogwoods were out. And I said, let's move here. I went back and I told Johnny, I can't do that, but I'm going to move to North Carolina. He goes, that's the best solution for you, Bob. It's been a good relationship. We shook hands on it. He says sometimes a man has to move on, and so there was never, it was good. And, these guys, they're good for their word, which sounds funny, being thieves and robbers and stuff. But
I think the movie Goodfellas. So it's like, I'm just thinking, here's what I would say. But that had to feel great for you.
Yes, because it was a release.
Well, this is why I'm asking, because it's not necessarily to bring back, the past, but it's more, one of the things that I've dealt with personally, my own, is the sense that you solve a situation. Literally, that is solving a situation. That is a definitive, great and clean slate, and you can enjoy that. And one of the things I've dealt with personally and dealt with clients too is the sense of, well, I want to go back and revisit that. I want to go back and, is it really solved? Will they change their mind? How were you able to optimize that situation for you when you get that,
Well, it was, something that Johnny said to me once was eye-opening. He said, Bob, all I want you to do is stay in integrity. Okay. This is funny coming from a mobster, right?
Right.
Right. And so he said, and you know what integrity means? It means doing what you say you're going to do or saying that you didn't do it.
Accountability.
And, you know,
Using that as
say,
another
do what you're going to,
integrity. Wow. Okay.
you know, and
Okay.
I think that is true everywhere. You know, sometimes you take things on and you commit to doing something, and
Right.
then you find that you might have procrastinated. You might have been not competent enough. There could have been all kinds of things.
Mhm.
A lot of people try to hide all that. They try to cover it up. And if you look at politics, I
Mhm.
mean, you look at politics, and
Right.
over the years with started Nixon and for all time in politics, it's not what they do; it's the cover up that gets them smashed.
Yeah.
You
Exactly
know,
right.
it's the cover up. And
Always.
so, you know, you do what you say you're going to do. And if you find that you're having problems doing it, or you're not able to do it, or you're not competent to do it, you go back and say, I'm really sorry I took this on, but I'm not finding that I'm able to do this. And you get back into, you're out of integrity as long as you're hiding it. You get back into integrity when you say, I can't do it. And then you go on.
It's amazing when you think of how many practical examples there could be of just using that alone, right?
Mhm.
In addition to the teachings and all that stuff. When did you know in your mind, hey, I can help other people with this? What was the taking a stand, so to speak? I'm going to use this information, I don't know, for good.
Well, you know, I mean, the 40 years of trial law, you know,
Right.
certainly built up the mental approach of,
Sure.
you know, standing for things.
Hmm.
But then, you know, when you actually sit down and intentionally cultivate something like loving kindness,
Right.
which is a particular, that's a word of art, loving
Mhm.
kindness.
Yep.
When you cultivate that, and there are meditations that actually reshape your brain,
Hmm.
the physical brain, so that it becomes who you are automatically. Um, when that happens, you know, your main thrust, your feeling of meaning and purpose in life is to ease the suffering of others, and that's just, you know, who you become.
Okay. Okay. So you've got this information, you've got this renewed sense of purpose in regards to helping others. Um, to me, one of the best things in regards to having that sort of renewed spirit is the ability that you're able to help others. What are some,
Mhm.
like for instance, you talked about even with politics, if I heard you correctly, I don't want to turn this into a political debate, I promise you.
Right, right.
But the tension that comes, and thank you for the reminder. I think it's important that it wasn't just this month or in the last couple of months, that sort of tension has been, ongoing for forever. One of the things I think about is the ability or the inability to be able to handle your own business, so to speak, because of external situations. What are some two suggestions in regards to that sense of not dismissing or try to suppress what's going on around you? You've got stuff making you tense. How are you able to, what would you suggest in terms of whether it's specific meditations or what have you, to get you to a point where you can handle the matter at hand?
You know, eh, what comes up for me is my dad. You know, he was a Hungarian immigrant and
Okay.
came to America in 1917, 1924. And he was looking to make the American dream come true as normal, and he found popcorn.
Ah,
Um, and so he was a popcorn cotton candy guy in an amusement park, but he was meticulous about things. And he had one stand, then a few stands, then many stands. And he said to me once, Bob, you know, my son, um, it's important to take care of the business of your business. You take care of your business, and your business will take care of you.
okay.
Because he attended to things, and I can remember that he walking behind him as a little child, and we had these pillars at the stand that had what they call Carrara glass, which was a smoky glass. And
Okay.
I remember he stopped and he reached into his pocket and he licked his handkerchief and he rubbed a little spot that he saw on the glass, and that's how he attended to things.
Oh my God, so
He
detail
just,
oriented, right?
he just took, well, it's just, that's what you do when you take care of things. One of the things when I teach mindfulness, for example, is you think of the word attention, and somehow that's got a lot of baggage to it. Like you got to keep your attention or keep attention or maintain your attention. And if you don't, it's bad. Change the word to attending. I'm not going to put my attention on this. I'm going to attend to it. I'm going to attend to it. But it's a whole different feeling. It's like I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to attend to it. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to give it my attention willingly, voluntarily, instead of somebody telling me I have to. It's like, so one of the tasks that I give my students when I'm teaching meditation is select an activity every day that you're going to do mindfully. And when I say mindfully, I mean, pick a task that you're going to have the intention of attending to it. Now, your mind's going to wander while you're doing it. Of course, your mind will wander. But when it wanders, you notice that it wanders and come back to attending. And so the difference is that if you have to wash the dishes, you could sit there grumbling about the fact that you have to wash these damn dishes, or that your partner should be washing them because you cooked the dinner, or you might be thinking about, and then it's a grumbly task that you have to do.
Right.
But if you wash the dishes mindfully, you attend to them. You pick up a plate and you look at it and says, what does this plate need? You scrape off that little piece and get some hot water. You feel the hot water. You feel the soap. It needs a little scrubby, or it needs a soft cloth. Then you dry it and you stack it. And all of a sudden you turn this mess into something beautiful. It's a whole different experience to attend to things mindfully. You find holiness in the ordinary.
I think the words that I think about when you say that, that's why I have a big smile bursts on my face, like pride, satisfaction, joy, those sorts of things, and then I think about the feelings that are evoked when you are tending to like a situation, because it matters, and you handle things differently because it matters, as opposed
it matters.
To, right?
It matters.
The drudgery of for God's sake. The water just burned me. Oh, this is gross. And why they all using different plates, and they could have just that. So that sense of it matters.
It matters. I just had in my law class, I just had the kids. They're just starting this semester. I just had the kids put on presentations about the different administrative agencies in the federal government.
Okay, got it.
And they were all gray.
Pretty timely, by the way. I said pretty damn timely, by the way.
Yeah, right.
But anyway, please continue.
Pretty damn timely. But all of their PowerPoints were on gray and white and black backgrounds, very little color, and they were reading a lot of text, and there wasn't much illustrations. And it was just like, the Volga boatsman. Da, 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 da. So I just sent him a letter, and it's exactly what you just said. I said, think of school as training ground for the rest of your life. So you can take an assignment that I give you as just an assignment, or you can take it as a training ground for how you're going to present to your boss in the future, and make it matter. Make it matter. Make it matter. Like, do it like your life depends on it.
Right.
We use the expression in meditation, do it like your hair's on fire.
Got it. Which is funny, because those expressions are not exactly what I like the cliched perception of what meditation is. I'm such a believer in what you're talking about, in the sense that these are all, at least in my mind, action-based things, rather than sit, reflect, and do nothing.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, meditation is not about sitting and doing nothing at all.
Right.
But I tell you something that my father said to me when I was a little kid, and he's coming out, he's teaching me tennis, right?
Right.
Now, my father was born in 1898, and he had me when he was 54. So he was substantially older than me.
Okay. Got it.
So he's an adult and I'm a little kid, and he's playing tennis, and he's not pulling any punches on me. And I don't know how to play tennis, and he beats me and beats me and beats me. And I go, wag, Dad, how come, you never let me win? He goes, look,
right.
He says, you wouldn't respect me if I let you win. But he said, here's what's important. He says, you play every point like your life depends on it. And at the end of the game, you'll look up at the score and all you do is shrug your shoulders.
Wow.
Because it's not about winning. It's about playing this point. Play this point like your life depends on it. And then whatever the score is, the score is. And it's the same thing in life. Just do whatever is on your plate as well as you can. You don't have to worry about the future. Take care of what's on your plate, the next deed, the next task that you have. Take care of that, and the future will take care of itself.
So brilliantly put. I'm going to ask you a weird question. Just because it keeps coming back to me, which is the simple sense. You instructed your students, as you just shared, and I love this, that find something that matters. Get away from the gray and all the text and reading stuff out loud. How are you able to help somebody, not do their job for them, but how are you able to help somebody get to that place where it matters? Because it matters, find something that matters, can sound daunting. How are you able to help through meditation, through your experience, whether in legal or life, to help somebody get to a place where they're like, oh yeah, that matters to me. That's okay. Let's do that. How do you help people in that regard?
Well, I teach meditation.
Right. Okay. Got it. So this is.
But there's all kinds of little things, in the journey. I mean, my meditation training to be a teacher was 2 years of real intense stuff. I don't ask people to do that.
Right.
But, the people at Duke University put together a digital infrastructure that facilitates the teaching of meditation in a way that's just extraordinary. And I can teach somebody in 4 or 5 weeks. That's how long the course is. In 4 or 5 weeks, what would normally have taken a year to accomplish. But let's talk for a little bit about what meditation is so that I can help that to understand. So meditation is not about quieting the mind. It's not about suppressing your thoughts. It's about learning how to skillfully manage your thoughts. And it's done in conjunction with the brain science that we now have available to it that we understand. But if I was to give the instructions to a first-time meditator, it would be basically form an intention to put your attention on something, and then your mind's going to wander. Now, why does your mind wander? It doesn't wander because you can't focus. It doesn't wander because you don't have attention. It wanders because the way that we evolved was 1,700,000 generations in the jungle as hunter-gatherers. So our brains normally scan the environment regularly for danger.
Okay.
We're always listening, looking, seeing, and our brain is sorting and diffusing and sending things up to us because danger was everywhere. The problem is, in today's world, and this is what confounds people, is that we evolved for dangers like snakes and tigers and poisonous frogs.
Got it.
We did. Today, our dangers, or those things that have the exact same physiological effect on us, are things like deadlines, promotions, kids that have to get to school, too much to do lists. These are the things that cause our cortisol to flow in our bodies, our adrenal glands to open up, and they cause stress. Stress it's misnamed. It's named to make it sound nicer. It's not stress. What stress is, chronic, undifferentiated danger. That's what stress is. It's chronic, it's undifferentiated because it's coming from a variety of areas, and our mind is trying to find what this thing is that's stressing me and it's looking all over the place all the time. So it is totally natural that our mind is going to wander. There's nothing wrong with that. It's supposed to be. So when the mind wanders, John, you have met people, well, you've been talking to people at times.
Sure.
And you really want to listen to them, but your mind wanders, right?
That's all true. Correct.
Huh?
No, 100% all true.
Yeah.
And that happens
so when
to be in this present day. I still haven't solved that.
yeah,
Right.
so when you're listening to somebody and it's your intention to listening to them and your mind wanders, doesn't there come a time when your mind kind of says to you, "Psst, hey, you're not listening to them"?
Yeah. It's a good narrative, the way that you just said that. I don't know that I would have been able to describe that.
Yeah, it's kind of like there's a little wake up, like, oh, I'm not listening to him. Then there's this flood of negative I should have been listening to him. I missed what he said. Right.
Yep.
But then you go back to listening, right? That's what meditation is. We say we're going to pay attention to the candle. Our mind wanders. At some point, our brain says, you're not paying attention to the candle. And then there's a flood of judgments. Oh, I screwed up. I didn't do it right. My blah, 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 blah. I didn't keep focus. But then the instructions are return your attention to the candle and begin again. And then your mind wanders. You notice, you come back, you begin again. Wanders, come back, begin again. The healing, the development of the neural pathways that we're looking for doesn't come in keeping focus. It comes in returning and beginning again. That's where the healing occurs. And it's this beginning again, beginning again, beginning again that builds a neural pathway that says, I am capable, I am strong, I'm able to do things. And as that mental strength builds up, then you have the tolerance for discomfort to be able to look at your judgments and evaluate them objectively as to whether or not they're even real. And mostly they're not.
Mostly they're not, right.
Mostly they're not. And so what happens is you start to develop this ability to step out of your thoughts and not be your thoughts and simply observe your thoughts from a different place. You know how when you're speaking to somebody and there's another voice in your head that's commenting on your conversation, even as you're speaking, it's saying, oh, this isn't going very well, or, oh, he's really getting it, or, oh, I see from his expressions that he... So that voice, which we call metacognition, or the thinking about your thinking, happens automatically, but it's not helpful because it's not intentional. In meditation, we learn to strengthen that voice and make it intentional, because when we put our consciousness into that voice, we find stability and comfort, even if we're angry, even if we're grieving, even if we're excited. We still have a certain part of us that's just observing it from a very safe place. And that gives us the ability to know that we will survive.
So that voice that you're talking about, and I've heard it described in a number of different ways, you know what I mean, that you say is trainable, first off. That, to me, I heard you correct, right?
Yes, correct.
But you're not able to, again, back to what you talked about earlier, you're not seeking to suppress that.
Right.
You're simply training it to be more of an ally rather than somebody, you know, chatting up in the cheap seats about what a worthless human being you are.
Exactly.
You're a fraud, and oh my God, you should have prepared better, and blah, 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 all that sort of thing. So it's your ability. So that, to me, is something I want to stick with for just a moment.
Okay. Well, let me just say the whole idea, what you just said, you're not suppressing, but what you are doing is you're allowing and letting go. So there's two ways to get rid of something. You can push it down, or you can allow it to fly away. And that's what we're doing. We come to the place where we can say, you know, this thing that tells me that I'm just incapable, that's not really true, because look at all the stuff. And, you know, you let it go.
you're not conditioning that voice to be more of an ally for you. You're
Hmm.
simply just treating it like I've heard it described, and I this visual I just happen to like. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you correctly, which
Hmm.
is the visuals from like a meditation app called Headspace, which I use,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's just right. And one of the things that they talk about is like it's like watching clouds. That when I do this correctly, I'm no expert here, but I was going to say
Right,
when I
right.
do it correctly, that it's like watching clouds. They just come, they just go, they just it's they're all different. But you don't need to stand up and draw complete attention to, oh, there's the cloud. Oh, that is this, and that must mean that they're just these random sequences, and it helps me because so often uh the cheap seat cheerleaders or the cheap seat people that are booing, you know what I mean? The people in the 700 section in Philadelphia that were known to boo relentlessly for the Philadelphia Eagles. They were the 700 section crowd, and it was like you ignore them
Yeah, exactly.
and let them fade
Ex-
away.
exactly. They're like little brats. The more attention you give them, the louder they get. But when you just say to them, well, I don't really want to be around that,
Mhm.
and you go into the other room and they get deprived of the attention and they go, well, that didn't work anymore. I guess I have to do something else. And they will do something else. They'll find something else to bother you with.
Mhm.
And then you have to let that go. It's kind of like peeling an onion. You get the outer stuff and then you got the next layer and the next layer and the next layer.
How do you help people to keep going? That onion description didn't go unnoticed. So if you're like in that sense of any given day, any given situation, like my biggest fear when I'm coaching people, because I watched it a lot, was the heartbreak of watching somebody give up.
Yeah, yeah.
And give
So
up doesn't have to sound as severe. It doesn't mean they gave up and they ended their life. I don't mean that. I mean that has, that's real. But what I mean is in more subtle ways that are just as heartbreaking of not pursuing your dream or changing course or taking the safer route. You were about to give me like, how do you
how do you do
help
that?
people? Yeah.
Well, there's two ways that you can get coaching.
Okay. Right.
Um, like you have Headspace, which is an app,
Correct.
and you can use it. The only issue with that is that accountability and
Mhm.
persistence, and you can pick up the app and use it whenever you want, or you don't have to use it. And there's the other way is with a teacher, a coach
Yep.
that you are accountable to,
Yep.
but generally that's very, very expensive.
Mhm.
And even if it's not expensive, you generally meet with your coach in periods. And so
Right.
you go for a long time, maybe a week or maybe a month
Mhm.
before you meet with your coach again. And your coach is very helpful and it's going to give you a lot of stuff. But whether you remember to apply that during the week or during the month, that's also an issue.
Mhm.
What I'm fortunate enough to have is a combination of an app and a teacher.
Okay.
And the way that it works is that in the what Duke University put together
Mhm.
was an app, and it's brilliant that it has all of the information and all of the guidance on it that you need to practice.
Mhm.
But as soon as you do, so people meet with me once a week for
Okay.
5 weeks.
Right.
We teach the techniques. We look at whatever obstacles they had the week before. We talk about whatever's on their minds, and I give whatever coaching I can.
Mhm.
Then they go home, and on the app is all the information that I gave them and the guided meditations, just like any other app.
Sure.
The only difference is that when their 10-minute guided meditation is over, a screen opens up with a log, and they dictate or they put a log in like what their response, their reflection on that 10 minutes was. That automatically comes to my dashboard. I get up at 4 o'clock every morning. Right now, I have 17 students. I get up at
Okay.
4 o'clock every morning and I see all of their logs and I type my coaching every single day. And it goes back to their app. And before they practice the next day, they get to read the coaching.
Wow.
So not only do they meet with me on a spatial system, but they're also communicating with me every single day through the app. And that means that they're having 7 contacts with me a week every time they practice. And so let's say somebody gives a log, writes a log, and they say, this was a terrible meditation. I was upset with what my boss said to me, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. The thoughts just kept running, and I never once came back and began again.
Okay.
I said, so they send me that log, and I go, hey, all practice is good practice. That's fine. So look how you recognize what power a thought train can have. I mean, it grabbed you and it took you and it held you for 10 minutes, then you heard the gong and then it was over. So that's really good and valuable information. Now you can recognize what it's like to be caught by a thought train. So the next time we talk about thought trains, we'll know what we're talking about. Good job. They get that feedback from me. And so it gives them that encouragement, and it gives them the okayness that even what they thought was a bad session was a good session.
Okay.
And to keep going. And so if I see that I'm not getting logs over several days, I have the opportunity to reach out and I say, so, you want to Zoom, you want to have a conversation, what's going on? You okay? But usually I do that at the end of the week. If I see somebody has not been logging that week, we do it either in group, or if it's an individual session, we talk about that and says, what are the obstacles that are coming up for you? What's holding you back? I just had a young lady who said that she hadn't logged for 2 weeks. And I said, what's going on? She goes, yeah, it always seems like I know what's good for me, but I never seem to go and do it. And we talked a little bit more. And I said, well, what thoughts are you having? What are the thoughts that come into your head? So, I mean, I'm not there as a therapist. I'm there as a meditation teacher. So I'm going to use meditation tools.
Sure.
So then I started asking her. Then she said, no, it's really like I kind of sabotage myself. I said, do you feel that in your body anywhere? She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, most of us have gotten so out of touch with our body, we don't feel our feelings anymore. Right. They call them feelings for a reason, because we feel them. Where do you feel them? So there was a struggle there. And as she was staying with me for a while and staying with us, usually she would like bop away, and distract herself.
Yeah.
But we stayed there for a little bit. And finally she just started crying, bawling, and said, I just don't feel like I have a right to be happy.
Wow.
And so, I could see that she was very emotional, and that, so I'm just asking, where are you feeling that? Where? Oh, I feel it all over. I feel it in my eyes and in my cheeks and my neck, everywhere. It's all over my body. I said, well, I bet it's someplace more than others. And I just kind of stayed with her. Finally, she said, you know what? I feel it right here, and she pointed to a spot like 3 inches under her collarbone.
But
and she
said
it's not
detail that.
She actually located
it's
a
right
spot.
Here.
Yeah. And then once she did that, she was totally dry. She was talking to me, and I said, so, by noticing a physical sensation, what you did is ground yourself in the present moment, because you can't feel a physical sensation any other time than now. Right?
Right.
And that means that you realize that there's nothing that is dangerous right here and right now, and you stop ruminating about the things that caused you to feel this way in the past, and you're not catastrophizing about how your life's going to be in the future. You're right here feeling your body, and you're not crying.
Wow.
And she goes, oh. I say, yeah, there you go. There's nothing here that's dangerous. And the reflection that she wrote at the end of the class, it was so sweet that my wife keeps telling me that she wants me to retire. And I showed her the reflection, and she goes, no, you got to keep doing this.
I am laughing with you, not at you. I find
that of course
fascinating because to myself, I'm for personal reasons that have manifested into professional. I'm profoundly grateful for my therapist who introduced his version is called zonefulness, and I was just talked about Joseph Dowling the other day, and I was a long time ago his very first client and or patient and or whatever in the stopping smoking via the old school term hypnosis, of which that had a million different negative ramifications. And he was the first person in my life, that's got to be 30 some odd years ago, that made or not made helped me to visualize in the present tense when I was either being when I was deep meditation is really what it was, right? And that sense. So I love the fact the way that you say that you're not taking someone on a trip necessarily, or they're not an innocent bystander like your student who literally was able to say, "Oh, wait a minute, it's." God Almighty, I still cannot find a collarbone. I would make a terrible doctor, but I like right. I was trying to get to the exact spot, right? And meanwhile, it's like okay, that they could be that present. I acknowledge you just for keeping her in because to me, it's the easiest thing in the world to say, I'm out of time, I'm out of patience, I'm too afraid, I don't want to know, or it doesn't matter, or as she said, heartbreakingly to acknowledge, I don't matter. I don't deserve that sense. So just because I'm a big believer in weird happy endings, that specific student, when they got to that point, were they able to at least try to get past that point of that I don't deserve?
Well, she logged every log from that point to the end of the
There
class.
you go. Just steal your exact words. There you go. I would
So
think,
there's an important lesson there.
yeah,
I share how I learned it.
right.
So I'm at a retreat, a training retreat,
Yep.
and we sit on the cushion for 20 minutes. We do walking meditation for 20
Okay.
minutes. Sit, walk, break for lunch.
Right.
And I'm sitting on the cushion, and all of a sudden, I get this like immense, sense of I got to get out and teach the world this because it's going to change the world. And I'm just like filled with this, feeling.
Yep.
And they had explained to us that emotions can be broken down into nothing more than a thought and a physical sensation.
Oh, wow.
Because John, if I say I love you, but I don't have a feeling of craving in my chest,
Right.
it's an intellectual comment.
Wow.
If I have a feeling in my chest, but I don't have the thought, it's probably indigestion.
Okay. Okay.
But if you have the two together, you say, I love you to somebody, you feel this yearning in your chest,
Right.
that's love. That's fear. You have physical sensations and you have thoughts. Oh my God, I'm in danger. And it's together with, this sense of tightening all over.
Mm-hmm.
So that we had learned that. And so I got up from my cushion improperly and went to the teacher's room and knocked on the door. And I was saying, I really got to teach this to the world, and we're going to change the world. But and so the teacher says to me, so Bob, you're having a thought. And I go, yeah, I'm having a thought. And you're having a physical sensation. I go, yes, I'm having a physical sensation. And he goes, so you're having a thought and a physical sensation. I go, huh. Oh, yeah. So back on the cushion? They go, yeah, back on the cushion.
So I think that's really impressive. Now let me ask you. So, folks, there, our guest Bob Martin happens to have one heck of a website uh, where an awful lot of really powerful stuff is. You're describing, if I'm not mistaken, please pronounce it. It's Koru, like in Koru.
Koru.
Thank you. Okay, this is what you're talking about, right? I mean, when you're
Right.
talking, okay. Um, what would you say? Like, I will have the link not just to that specific page, but your website in general. What would you just two last questions for the moment, which is number one, um, I'm starting to become a believer of the ability to be able to choose your authenticity rather than just accept it. What would you say defines you in regards to being authentic, having your authentic, taking a stand voice? How would you define it as it relates to yourself?
Master Ni and Taoism teaches going with the flow in a very profound and deep way.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is you have to become sensitive to the flow itself. It's like if you're going down a river and the flow is calm, life is great. But then there's such a thing as whitewater and waterfalls. So you have to be tuned into the flow, and then you have to align yourself with the flow and act appropriately for the flow.
Mm-hmm.
You don't act the same in your canoe in whitewater that you do in calm water.
Mm-hmm.
So when people aren't listening or don't, if I have a great idea and I don't feel that somebody wants to listen, I don't force them to listen. I back away and wait until the time is ripe. That's what Taoism teaches. And I think that my authenticity comes from having cultivated that sensitivity to the flow and acting appropriately, putting out the energy when you need to put out the energy, but backing away when you need to back away.
How have you found for yourself the ability to help others? I don't mean the tactics and the tricks, because obviously you've very vividly described those. But if somebody is like they can't even get out of their own way, what would you suggest? Maybe as a launch point or a starting point?
Well, the social workers, because I have an MSW as well, the social workers' mantra is go to where the other is and bring them back with you.
Wow.
Yeah, you don't start where you are. You start where the other is. You have to listen. You have to be open and listen. Yeah, you got to listen. It's more important to listen. It's funny. My wife is telling me, giving me about a list of honeydews, and I finally had to say to her, "Hey, honey, tell me what's more important to you. Is it more important that I understand what you're asking me to do, or is it more important that you get to say what you want to say the way you want to say it?" She goes, "Well, of course it's more important that you understand what I'm asking you to do." I said, "Well, then you're going to have to change the way you're going to say it, because I'm not getting you." So you have to talk in, you have to listen, and then you have to talk into the other person's listening. You know, and this may sound, you know, like woo-wee and crystally, but it can be learned. You just have to, you know, be open, and you have to, you know, that's what we call wisdom. And wisdom is heart knowledge and head knowledge and experience and failure and living life, risking.
And bouncing back.
And bouncing back.
And I think the practical knowledge that you conveyed, I'm still from a long time ago fixated on the tending to. I find that's just, like I said, that sense of, if you don't know, like for myself, my favorite of a lot of things will be that sense of tending to things rather than chore oriented. I can still see the image. I didn't stay there, but I could still see and feel the image of the sense of joy, pride, satisfaction, and this very practical working knowledge. I will have, Bob, your website link here. Is there a better way to get to you? I know you're on Facebook. I know you're on LinkedIn. I'll have those links there as well, too, for others to find you. Is that the best way to find you?
Best way is go to the website and it says contact us and just send me an email.
Great. Because I feel like, honest to God, that this sense of this overwhelm that seems...
Or, I mean, my email is bob@awiseandhappylife.com.
Okay, got it. And I'll list that as well, too. As long as you're cool enough with it.
Yeah, I'm
I want people to know And to me, that's that sense of, tell me one more time, because I'll act thick, but I want to hear it one more time before we break, which is the expression that you said, meet them where they are. Tell me one more. I love this.
Meet them where they are and bring them back with you.
That's it. That's it. Bob Martin, I am very grateful that you showed up and met us where we are and brought us back. Thanks so much for making time today.
Thanks for all the work in putting together the platform that gives people like me a chance to express our passion.
Oh, I'm really excited for this. I know that you help a lot of people. Bob Martin, thanks so much for showing up. And folks, you just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep watching, liking, sharing. Keep driving content right through your front door. Well, not. But it's John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Have a great rest of the day. Thanks so much again, and we will talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.